Welcome to the Swim Swam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining us today, she is the head coach of the National Training Center in Loughborough for England. She is most well known for being the head coach of Olympic champ, world record holder Adam Peaty. Today, we're sitting down with England's own Mel Marshall. How's it going, Mel?
Hey, good, thank you. Very good.
You're in Rome right now at the European Championships. You're kind enough to take time out of your nap time between sessions to sit down and chat with us. I have to ask first off, is it weird being at a major championship meet without Adam?
Yeah, I mean, the weirdest one for me was probably at Commonwealth Games, because I was the head coach for the Commonwealth Games. And my favourite part about being as a coach is the last walk down that you do with them. And so I love that bit. I'm always like, yes, this is the good bit. And that was the first time I've probably not walked him down to a competition in terms of that arena since 2014. So that was really strange. So yeah, no, it's weird being without him, and obviously it's weird in terms of a few people from the team that aren't here. They decided just to do the 2 meets this summer, so we're probably at 60%, but we're doing really well and we're battling hard, and there's loads of learning happening in terms of going from 1 meet worlds into Commonwealth Games and then bouncing on to European. So in answer to your question, yes, it is weird, but we're soldiering on.
Give me a vibe check to use some hip young lingo of Team Britain right now. Just like you said, you're learning a lot, but it is the third major championship for a lot of these athletes, or for some of these athletes at least, over this summer, including a couple of your own. How do you feel like Euros has gone so far for Team England, especially those athletes who are on meet number 3 of the summer?
Well, give you a vibe check. Wow, that's brought me back to being in my 20s. I'll try and get there. So, I mean, I just think we're doing really well. And like, it's obviously the biggest one I think a lot of performers have found this year, the emotional debris off the back of a pandemic, off the back of an Olympic Games, is just heightened everywhere. You've seen the big guys, the Calebs, the Kamingas, the people that did really well last year, and it's just been an adjustment year. But I think we're battling really well. I'm always really proud of how tough our guys are when our backs are against the wall, and we showed that in COVID. And I think that's it's a testament to the characters that the swimmers are, really. And it's a pleasure to work alongside them and see them. They are tired and their tanks are empty, but somehow they're finding a way. And so the vibe right now is battle to the end, until the end, get it done.
For your athletes specifically, I know Luke Greenbank is there. Anna Hopkin is there, or no?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you train both of them. How did you prepare them for a summer like this of so much racing, or is there anything different that you did to get them ready for that kind of competition?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge we've had is you have no winter, because obviously ISL took up the winter cycle in terms of preparation. And then also, they're off the back of the Olympics. They're just kind of just decompressing in as many ways as you can. So, I mean, we hit the ground running in January, which was pretty good. We went out to Florida on a camp, managed to sneak across the borders. Luke got the flu, like literally, as in his bed for 2 weeks. And so then we hit the trials. That was okay. And then Anna got COVID. And then we basically then went to the Worlds. Luke did really well. And then when he came back, he got COVID when he came back. So it was an interesting prep into the Commonwealth Games for him. But all we've done is just trying to take 1 week at a time and make the best of the circumstances that we've had. We try and get as much work in through to the trials. And then as much work as we could in early. We went to Tenerife on a 3-week camp into World Champs, and then straight off World Champs, back up again for 2 weeks, then back down and try and bounce from one to the next. So it's not a normal year. It's a strange year, but I've enjoyed the challenge. It's been a really good learning year for me. It's really tested me. I've called it the avalanche year because it's been one thing after another. There's either been a broken foot, there's been flu, there's been COVID, there's been I'm fatigued, there's been all sorts of stuff. But it's been a hard year for sure, but it's definitely been a good year for learning and just getting better and trying to get better skills and better coping for what we deal with every day, really.
Yeah, let's talk about that broken foot, because I'm guessing as a coach that was something that was a unique situation. You have this guy who's coming off defending his Olympic title. He's heading into world champs and Comm Games as the heavy favorite, and then he has to deal with this injury. He goes to the Comm Games looking good in the 100 breast, and then doesn't make the podium, and then gets that 50 breast title coming back from that. What were your takeaways from Adam's swims at Commonwealth Games, especially after coming off that injury?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing with the injury was, like, obviously after the Olympics, he had some opportunities that you've got to take in terms of like commercially, and you only get this journey once, and the exposure was high. So he did that. That was cool. Then we went on camp and he was in a good place. And then we got to the trials and I was like, oh, he's in better shape than I thought he was. And I could hear him. In my mind, I'd be like, oh, I want to go dancing and doing all that every winter cycle. So then we got in a good space for the trials, and then we went on camp, and then we started to cross over. So we'd worked really, really hard physically and emotionally to get into that space, and went on camp to Tenerife, and I was like, we've crossed the threshold where I could see him starting to deliver stuff at a level that was going to probably sit him in 57 shape towards the summer. Mm-hmm. And we had 1 week left, and I was like, right, just 1 week. And then he rattled his foot, and I was like, oh, mate, nightmare. And then we got the x-rays and all that sort of stuff. And it was like, it was in a place whereby if you don't protect it or don't let it heal, it would have limited his range forever. So we had to go, it was a tiny little, minuscule little break, but the place where it was, there's no circulation. So we literally had to just take 1 week at a time, and he was rattling around in a boot and then on a ski erg and in a canoe and everything. But ultimately, the bottom line of it is, as entertaining as that is, it doesn't prepare for long course racing. That off the back of no winter. And it's really simple. It's like, not enough time to prepare, broke your foot, not enough time to prepare. So there's only so much you can do in that space. And he's a warrior in terms of like the way he came back in that 50 was great. And, you know, it was just back to basics and back to just being aggressive and just getting it done. So, but just didn't have the training capacity in his tank to survive 3 swims in a long course space. So, but he's having a break now and refreshing, and then start the year in September rather than starting it in January, I think is probably the answer, really.
He had mentioned that for the last couple of years, how whatever time span that was, he hadn't had that spark or motivation that he had felt before. For you as his coach moving forward, how do you help him regain that, especially at the place in his career where he is, where it's like he just went to Comm Games, and it's like, this will probably be my last Comm Games, and he's looking to defend his 2-time Olympic title, looking to defend all those world titles, in Fukuoka. He's at a unique place in his career, somewhere not many people get at all. So how does that differ in terms of you helping him get motivated versus maybe, 4 years ago, before there was this pandemic and before there was maybe so much, I don't know, before he had added so much to his resume?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is, for when you're at that stage of your career, you exchange motivation for discipline, because the motivation gets you out of bed, but the discipline keeps you on the right track, keeps you doing the boring things, the things that you've been doing for 10 years. And I always try to explain it to him like a fighter pilot. Like, when you're up in the air and you're fighting and you're going at speed, that's the fun bit. But it doesn't mean to say that you can't still go through the procedures that are required, the safety checks, the boring stuff. And that needs to be done every time you take off. And so it's just making sure that he keeps the discipline around the edges on that, so that he does the safety checks, and that way the plane will go up and fly. And for me and him, in terms of, obviously, we've worked together for like 14 years, we've always had to manufacture motivation in some ways, because he achieved so much year upon year. So you really have to force yourself to ask for more, ask the team for more, ask him for more. And that won't change. The most important thing for him moving forward is he has to be connected to his why. He needs to know what his moral purpose is, his business purpose, and his performance purpose. And as long as he's really connected to that, this next 2 years will unfold how he wants to unfold it. And for me, I can't own that. I can't own that piece. I know what my moral purpose is, my business purpose, and my performance purpose. But he needs to make sure he knows what his is. If this is the last 18 months of his career and this is how he wants to see himself out, he needs to know what his why is. And that will be the most important thing for us over the next 18 months. When he's going through those boring discipline checks that you can't avoid. To be high performance long course swimming, you can't avoid the boring stuff, the meters, the winter, the dark mornings, the dark nights. And it's just through those times you need to really know what your why is. And for me, my why is, this athlete is one of the most amazing athletes on the planet. And I still think there's just that little bit more, and we should just try and find it. But he needs to know his reason why. And that's what this time off's about, and just reflecting. And this year will have helped him understand that. And as long as we have that, we can look back with no regrets, because we've given it 110% the whole way from start to finish. And that in itself is, I think, it's an achievement, that we'd never, ever back down through a challenge. We've always found another way. And, that's the bit to be proud of, not the silverware that comes to it, but our commitment to a cause from start to end. And we've never given in, never.
So a couple things from that answer come up for me. The first of which is that when you say manufacturing motivation, I think of The Last Dance and Michael Jordan and him making up rivalries or making up different scenarios for other players. What does manufacturing motivation look like for you as a coach, specifically with Adam?
I think it's manufacturing the stimulus in preparation to make sure that it stimulates him to a point whereby he can be motivated by the training program, or motivated by the set that's going out, or motivated that he may be delivering it at the right level, but someone now also might be delivering it at the same level. And it's about manufacturing and just looking at what we have with Adam is a large amount of information, a large amount of facts. And we've gathered that even more over this last year. But ultimately, we know what the formula is, and it's just about sticking to the boringness that comes with delivering that formula. But my job is to make that as entertaining as physically and emotionally and mentally possible.
So then, second of all, you keep saying long course high performance, which kind of mirrors what we've heard from Adam over the years of this intense focus on long course. He hasn't competed a ton in short course. He did ISL and he was good there, but it didn't seem like he was quite as dominant as in long course. It's always just seemed like throughout his career, the focus has always been on long course. How big of a proponent were you in developing that mindset with him? Was that your idea? Was that his idea? Was that kind of a joint effort, and sitting down and saying, this is what we want to accomplish? Because it's always seemed like the focus is always long course.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him is he was born to swim. He certainly wasn't born to start and born to turn, because we have worked so hard on that. And, we've got him from someone that's 7'1" to someone that can go 6'3" to 15 meters. And I tell you now, that's been a 10-year slog. So I just think he's more naturally built for the swimming side of the sport. Short course meters is really good for us in terms of, he broke a world record in an ISL season, and it's really good for us to hone in starts and turns and skills. And we'll go to a world short course this year as well to just practice those elements of it. But he, like some people, have a natural talent towards short course, and some people have a natural talent towards long course. Adam's always found his way in the long course pool, but the short course pool is very beneficial to us in terms of, if you're not good at something, the best thing to do is do those things under pressure and learn. And that's what we use short course for. So definitely it's good to have him in that space for sure.
So then in terms of training, you're the head coach at Loughborough now. You guys started out at Derby. What does the training look like at Loughborough? I got to see a snippet of it, but you guys were kind of getting meet ready. But is it more training as a group, or is it very individualized in terms of what sets people are doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think the model that we use, which I think it works for us, is we all do performance, but how we do performance is really individualized and personalized. I could write a set of 2100s up and ask an athlete to do it the same, but not one of them would have the same physiological response. So for me, it's about cracking the formula there, individualized physiology, psychology, technicality, character, and creating something that works specifically for them. And that's how we work. But our group goal is to do performance. But our mantra is that, you do you, as in how you get there will never be the same. How I coach Adam Peaty is not how I coach Luke Greenbank. How I coach Jacob Whittle is not how I coach Anna Hopkin. How I coach, joining the group Bella Hindley will not be how I coach Sarah Vasey. What we do is the same, but they'll all require me to be different in each scenario, but still hold the standards that are required and have the conversations of what performance takes. But how I get there will be very different with every individual.
Is that hard to manage on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. It's emotionally draining, trying to be a chameleon all the time.
Right.
But that's the fascinating bit about the job I love. Hang on a minute, Luke's not done that set how I wanted to this week. I'm doing it again next week. What do I need to do differently? Is it more data around it? Is it more, okay, it needs to be 10 kicks rather than 11 kicks? Adam didn't like that set because it just didn't stimulate, all those kind of things. And we do stuff as a group. I really I pride myself on the fact that they travel together as a unit and help each other. But it's, you just got to change and shape yourself. And I'm not of the belief, and for me anyway, I think it works for others. And I think it's, as long as you know who you are as a coach, but for me, it's a level, it's a standard, and it's a discipline, but it's individualized and specified to that person. And I think that's how you get more people up the mountain. It's just my thoughts.
Just your thoughts. Just if you're tuning in just now, just Mel Marshall's thoughts.
Just my thoughts. Me and you, you in the morning, me in an afternoon, just having some thoughts.
I think a lot of these are pretty enlightening. So again, thank you for sharing them.
Did you say mine was the best? Is that what you said?
This is the best. Yours are the best thoughts. So again, on the training perspective, will you give a set, like, for example, I don't know if you give this set, but 2100s, will you give that to the whole group, but then just have them do it in different ways on any given day? Or do you come in and you're like, all right, today you're going 6 100s, you're going 8, and you're going 12?
I think it would be a mixture throughout the periodized plan, in terms of sometimes I might go 8, 6, 12, but if I was going to give a block of 2100s, I would do everybody differently. So Luke might go 5 100s best effort band into 5 100s kick, into 5 100s best effort band, into 5 100s kick. Adam might go 25 breast, 75 free, 3 at threshold, 1 easy, and then 1 kick times 4. Someone like Anna might go a max 15 on every 1, 3, 5 all the way up. Someone like Bella might go, how many 30s can you do across those 2100s? Somebody like Sarah Vasey might go all fins, 5 IM at threshold, 5 is 50 breast, 50 free swim. Someone like Jacob, I would probably go with him in terms of 4 1 to 4, and 3 1 to 3 down to VO2, and then 1 easy, 4 rounds through. And I would just have the whole of thing running all on the same turnaround, but everybody doing different bits in the turnaround, if I was going to run it like that on that particular day.
the the speed with which you made a main set for 5 different athletes right there. That's impressive.
Oh,
So you obviously know your athletes really well. Coming to that national center from Derby, was there a big difference? Was coaching that group of athletes a big change from the group of athletes you were used to coaching at Derby?
well, the pool was certainly different because I mean, I'm talking to Asker and I'll be able to show the quality of the pool that we were in before Rio. But yeah, I mean, I brought a few athletes with me. So Luke had already started to join in Derby. He'd come from a little club in Cockermouth, and Adam and Sarah. So the biggest difference obviously was in terms of the other athletes that were already quite established in the centre, and the bigger amount of staff. So yeah, it was a big change, and there was lots of changes for me in terms of personally going from a community-based program to a professional governing body, and how my role changed. So there was lots of moving parts, and it was an interesting part of my journey, certainly as a coach. And I found that quite difficult in the first 2 years, just managing, because I call it as I used to work on a speedboat and I was in charge of the speedboat, even though it had holes in the speedboat, but I was on a speedboat, and then you kind of step onto an oil tanker. And so the oil tanker can go longer and can work better, but ultimately navigating the oil tanker and shifting it around can sometimes feel a bit slow. So that was the big change for me, and I had to learn and adapt quite quickly on that. But it's a I was from Loughborough myself, so I studied there, and I was in the university program to start with, and I went into the national centre because they're 2 separate programs. And now obviously I head up the national centre program. So but it was a big privilege in terms of it's one of the best jobs in the country, and I felt very privileged to be given that opportunity. And this sounds really geeky, but I absolutely love my job. I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life, because I'm just like swimming, buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. Sad, isn't it? But I love it. So it's all good.
When when you decided to transition from swimmer to coach, or maybe there was some time in between there where, I don't know, you worked on a speedboat or something. When you decided to become a coach, was that a goal of yours, or something like being a national center head coach a goal of yours?
Yeah, 100%. I wanted that job from the day I started coaching. But I wanted to do it properly. So I really wanted to go back to a club and earn my stripes and just learn everything I needed to, because having been an athlete, I felt the responsibility of making sure that I was fully equipped to support people in that top space. And so for me, I wanted that job from as soon as I started coaching, really, but I wanted to earn that job and wanted to go about it the right way. But I actually found myself in coaching by a little bit by chance, because when I retired from swimming, I wanted to be a PE teacher. So when I was at university, I'd done loads of coaching or teaching other sports like hockey, football, with kids with disabilities. So I'd had a massive experience with coaching, but just not in swimming. And then I used to, as an athlete, you go to these star athlete things, right? And you would be the star athlete for the afternoon, but you'd often turn up to these places with just you, 3 volunteers, 4 lanes, and like 90 children. And they were like, here they are, 6 hours. So I was like, I quickly had to learn, how to kind of entertain and educate and keep these people occupied. And then I needed a job when I retired from swimming. So I applied for 2 jobs that were near enough so I could finish my university degree and travel and get some money. The first job was at a club that wouldn't give me an interview. And then this job was available, and they took a chance on me, and I took a chance on them. And then from literally 1 week in, I was like, this is it. What have I been missing? And funny story, when I went to the job interview for the Derby job, I didn't take any money with me by accident. And I had my suit on, and basically I couldn't get out of the car park. And I didn't want to make a bad impression and go back into the interview panel and say, can I borrow £2 for the car park? So I had to beg in the street to get the £3 off somebody to get out of the car park to leave. So that was my story about my interview for that. Easy to get £5 out of someone when you're in a suit, though. It took about 2 people.
You're in a swimsuit. Lesson learned.
Absolutely.
Nice. Wow. That's impressive, Mel. I've never heard that one before. So then when you started
but
coaching,
it was a proper suit, not a swimsuit.
okay, a proper suit. That's a
not
little
a
more
swimsuit.
surprising to me.
Not
Maybe
a swimsuit for the interview.
maybe they think you're more credible in a suit.
Yeah, maybe.
That's interesting. So you start coaching and at this club team in Derby, and then what about that takes you, or what about that makes that goal of being a head coach at a national team center really a reality for you? What took you to that space?
Well, I think for me, somebody told me that we couldn't have a performance program in the club that I was in, and that was just a red rag to a bull. So I was just like, basically, a load of people said, "Oh, you can't have performance in this club," and we were actually a feeder club, which we were supposed to feed into a performance center. But I just wanted to do a really good job for the kids that I was working with, and if they wanted to move, that was cool, and if they didn't, then that was fine. But ultimately, with me doing a really good job, everybody wanted to stay. So then performance, just got better, and we started to win stuff, and then we just got on this cycle. But my whole goal was just, give the kids, because I was straight out of sport, I was just so passionate about giving kids the very best journey. And that's what we did. We just everything was just about having fun, and it was about getting better, and it was about having no limits. Like, my philosophy in the program was that everybody can go to their Olympics, whatever that is. Now, that might be to finish at 18 and have finished your swimming career and get your A-level results. That might be going to the regional championships. But the mantra was that you go to your Olympics, whatever that is. And I think that just kept people topped up. And then eventually we started to get some good results. And, when I went into the program, I had 12 regional qualifiers. And when I left, I had Adam, who won the Olympics. I had a kid who won the Paralympic bronze medal. I had 3 kids on scholarships to the States. I had 24 national medalists. I had, I think it was 5 internationals at the time. And we'd done this from nothing. So, but once I started on that train of everything was getting better, I just wanted to prove myself. You can do it anywhere. And I wanted to prove that I could do it anywhere, and that I was really good. And I think that served me well the whole way through. And for all those people that said you can't at the start, when he won the Olympics and the kid won the Paralympic bronze medal, I was just like, oh, I love being right. Even if it did take me 8 years of being angry at you, I'm right.
Lesson learned. Mel Marshall can hold a grudge. And she can prove
life
it.
Sentence. They've got a life sentence, I tell you. Made my life hell.
At what point through this coaching journey at Derby did you think you would have an Olympian or a Paralympian, or an Olympic medalist or a Paralympian medalist?
Well, I think what was great about my early coaching days was I was a bit naive, but I just believed in anything was possible. And I think that rubbed off on quite an influential group of people. And obviously I met Adam. Most people I think know this story, but he came along to the session one time, and I'd met his best mate's mother through when I was getting my mortgage. She was like, "Oh, I've got a son that swims," and I was in that space where I just wanted some older athletes. I was like, "Oh, bring him along." And his name was Kyle, and he brought Adam. And, I genuinely, no word of a lie, when I saw this kid come in with his hair down to the side, I was like, he's going to block me space. He's a big boy to not be able to do freestyle. And, he was in the 3rd lane with all the girls, and the 11-year-olds, and he was 14 at the time. But then I saw him do breaststroke, and most importantly, I saw him race doing breaststroke, and he was like a little animal. And then all of a sudden his progression was quick. So in the space of 2-3 weeks, he would shift up a lane, and, he started performing much better, and he was only training with us times a week. So just added a bit. And then I spoke at when he went 59 for the first time, I spoke at the British Swimming Coaches Association conference, and I said in that conference, because he'd done 9 swims, 9 PBs that summer, and he just missed. And I basically said, this kid can go 57. And there was a little bit of the noise. The room made a noise, and then that was like, to me, I was like, right, I'll show you. And then, obviously in 2015, he broke the world record and went 57. And that year that he did that, I knew he was in 57 territory because the thing he was doing was just insane. I didn't think it was going to pop then. I thought it was going to pop the year after. I mean, that just blew my mind, that first world record. I was just like, I don't know what sort of life high that is, but that was a life high. And then he went 57 in the trials that summer, well, in the trials in the Easter.
That is wild. His first summer of swimming, when was the first time he went 59?
So in let me get my dates right. I'm not very good with air admin. He went 59 in 2013. And because he just missed the World Championships, he went 60 point. Michael Jameson just beat him. And then he went, and the trials were in the June. And then he went 59 in the summer, but obviously didn't go to the Worlds. And then he won Commonwealths the year after, going 58.6. And then obviously he went in 2015, he went 57 for the first time.
Yeah, that is a heck of a progression. So you go to this eventually in 2016. You moved to the National Training Center back at Loughborough, back where you competed. From being a swimmer to being at Loughborough to being a coach there at Loughborough, was that a unique experience for you? Did you really enjoy getting to come back home? Or did you were like, oh, I was kind of hoping to experience somewhere else, or did you really enjoy getting to go back to Loughborough?
Well, I think we'd already, as a club, we used to go to Loughborough training quite a bit. We used the pool there a bit because Derby was travelable. And then when Adam got good and had a couple of good athletes, we used to get some time there. So it was almost like quite a seamless transition. And I think, if I'd gone straight into coaching at that level at Loughborough, I would have felt a bit weird in terms of straight up being an athlete. But because I'd done 8 years in a club, in a program, I'd got this kind of like, I suppose, this feeling of, you can put me anywhere now. It won't matter. I'll be able to cope and adjust and adapt. And that's how I felt, I suppose, when I went in there. And like I say, there was things that I found difficult, but again, I'm someone that tries to grow and get better at every scenario that I'm in. And, in terms of, you find your feet eventually, don't you? But I think those 8 years at Derby, learning how to deal with angry parents, learning how to deal with the politics, learning how to deal with not having enough funds and not having enough money, not having enough coaching staff, not having enough water time, pools being shut because somebody's taken a poop in the pool or whatever it might be, all those dramas. It does equip you for the next stage. It doesn't completely give you all the skills, but it certainly equips you for the next stage. Like, I mean, the dramas that I dealt with in that city club were in the space of like sometimes 2 months. Sometimes I couldn't even tell you the stories on here, fella. And you're dealing with it all on your own because all the people around you are technically volunteers. So you're just like, right, what's the procedure for this? This is a new one.
Yeah. I've been a club coach for almost 10 years and not at that level, but I mostly, I don't have to deal with stuff because I'm just like an assistant who comes a couple times a week, which is great. And so I just hear all the head coaches telling me these stories, but being a club coach does not seem that easy.
No, it's not. And I really feel for the community of club coaches within our country, because it's really hard hours and the pay is not very good. And, I couldn't have done, my years at Derby. I was, at times 8 weeks without a day off, and I was 5 a.m. to doing the masters till 10 at night and trying to run a program that would produce performance at Olympic level. It was madness. And then, I had there was a guy, well, it's a long story, but basically there was a guy who was a builder, and his son was really naughty, and I'd been on a course about managing conflict. And the course was basically ask questions, dilute the problem, tell me more about that. And this guy, he's fairly big, accosted me in the corridor, and he was like, "Why have you thrown my son out?" And I was like, "Brilliant chance for me to exercise my managing conflict skills from this morning's course. Well, tell me why." And he just started shouting, and all the kids were like, "Well, what's going on down there?" And then I just threw the course in the bin in the back of my mind and just shouted back at him. And then I just stood my ground. And I was just like, well, sometimes you just got to shout back, haven't you?
Sometimes you can't always execute the cause, right?
No, definitely not.
So as a swimmer, were you this tenacious about performance as you were when you were a coach, or when you are a coach now?
Well, I learned it over time. Like when I always worked hard. But when I finished my club days, I sort of I'd exhausted every kind of avenue. I always worked hard, and then I sort of went into playing soccer, as you guys call it, for like a year when I was like 18, and just dossed around really. And then I went to Loughborough University with a friend of mine, tried the swimming program there, and I was just like, it was with Ben Titley and Ian Armiger then. And I was just like, if I come here, I will be fast at swimming. And so I just missed the Sydney Olympics. So I made the decision to move across, and it was just a university program then. And I was with Ben, and I was with Ben for 7 years, actually, in terms of coaching myself, James Gibson, Ian Hume, who's now coaching at university, Liam Tancock, Caitlin McClatchy. So I was with Ben for like 7 years, and it changed from a university into a centre. And then I went on a training camp with Bill Sweetnam in 2003, and that changed me forever. So I knew what working hard was, but he pushed me to another level, and I made this threshold change where I went from someone that was good to someone that was great every day. Now I know I didn't win the Olympics in 2004, but I learned what it was to prepare at the level to be in a space to be the best in the world for sure. And I learned that on that camp, 7 weeks of 15 meters off every wall, going 38 seconds for every 50, even on easy stuff, heart rate above 190 in the warm up, the whole lot, shoes on, doing fly kick, anything that was needed. We did it on that camp. And there was like, there's quite a lot of athletes on that space and actually a lot of athletes that have now gone into coaching after that. So that made me change as an athlete for sure.
The Ben Titley coaching tree is growing every day. I mean, like half those athletes I think you mentioned are now, coaching at a very high level, right? Which is really cool to see. And but I was amazed when I came to Loughborough. I was amazed to just learn about how many of those athletes not only are coaches now, but were athletes at an exceedingly high level when in their own careers. So when you're preparing athletes to train or to get prepared at that high level, is it more about the physicality of what they're doing in training? Is it more about preparing their mental game or getting them of the mindset of, hey, you have to be able to train at this level to get to a space where you can compete in an Olympic final for a medal?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. And have you ever watched Top Gun?
I have watched Top Gun.
So for those people who have, this will make sense. For those who haven't, this is going to make no sense. But Maverick always says about don't think, just do. And so your job as a coach is to, through training programs or through simulation, is to do it so well that they don't have to think, they just do. And so the art of coaching to me is creating that autopilot, that dominant response under pressure that rolls and delivers at the right level. And they don't have to think about it, they just do. Now, some of that comes through conscious coaching, and some of that comes through in terms of you creating and getting into their unconscious space, so that you're just programming and working everything so in the background, so that ultimately under pressure, when they don't think, they just do. that's what comes out of them. And that's my philosophy in terms of the coaching. Now, I get that because I was an athlete, for sure. So I coach from the inside out. So I go from, what does the event need? What does the human need? How do I create that in my training programs so that when they get there, they don't think, they just do. That's how I go about it.
Has there been a championship meet for you over these past 8-ish or so years that you've walked away from feeling like you had a really significant piece of learning, or like this was the most you've ever been able to take away from a championship meet in terms of that preparation of trying to get them to not think, just do?
I think it's always learning. But for me, I always doubt myself, as in, like, have I done enough? Is it my fault? I think some coaches would take some of the responsibility. I always take all the responsibility. So if they don't do as well as they can, I'm always like, that's got to be my fault. So I will always take that home with me. But the biggest one that I always learn from everything in terms of seeing and racing that level and gets me thinking, but actually observing them in training, that really helps me gauge and help with that. Don't think, just do. But the biggest one for me was Tokyo. You know, as a coach, you never go unscathed. There's always one swim that you're like, didn't get that. The best set of results for me personally at level across everybody. Like, not one of them didn't fire. So, you know, Whittle fired. He was on point, done best times. You know, came of age in terms of like 17-year-old going 48.1 and 47.5 in relays. He swam great. Adam 256.5 in the relay, 57.3 in the 100. Anna Hopkin 52.7. 52.0 in the relay. Luke Greenbank, despite breaking his foot basically at the trials, you know, going 154 and getting that bronze. And Sarah Vasey, who was dealing with her mum who who had cancer, and getting her to actually get to the games and swim 66 again. You know, you never ever come away from a meet where you're like, oh, and for that one, I don't know how, but it's just like, I left like, oh, they've all gone all right. Great news. I don't have to worry about anything on break. I can enjoy myself. So that to me was a real, when you've coached someone like Adam, the story at the start is, but over the time the story changes, you've only got one athlete, or you can only do this. And it was really great to see Bob Ballard and Bob Bowman in terms of, obviously, with Leon in World, because when you've had one like that, it's like, it's an absolute privilege. I love working with him. It's been the best journey in terms of, it's just the best journey, but it's an elephant on your back because people just think, oh, you only coach him. So for me at the Olympics, when I got all of those results from those guys that I work with, that was a massive, like, Mel, you're not just you aren't what people think you are, which is just a one-trick pony. You've got so much more to you. And I know that. But it took Tokyo for me to know that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with our audience, because I think a lot of people probably don't realize that either. But happy to spread that good word. Happy to sit down with you today, Mel. Thank you for taking the time out of your European Championships to sit down and chat and let me pick your brain for a while. Is there anything we've missed? Is there anything else you want to discuss before we sign off today?
No, just when are you coming back? Baseball hat for a 20-year-old.
I've been to Mare Nostrum. I've gotten a taste for it, and so I think I've probably got to make that trip again this year, and I'll stop in the UK along the way. Fingers crossed.
Let's get some better weather for you next time.
I thought it was really. I was impressed with Loughborough weather. I think it only rained like once in like 3 or 4 days.
Done well.
Yeah. You've been listening to the Swim Swam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take Swim Swam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.